Next one is a brilliant player, someone you cannot take your eyes off. I call him this kind of guy where I went to captain's run for the Bulls in Munster, and even in the practice, you keep thinking, well, who's that athlete? He just looks like proper athlete. We're back into sort of Pierre Spies land when you look at a guy who's big and ripped and shredded and good-looking young kid. So it's the Cameron Hanekom. So what do you know about this guy?
Let's have a look. Don't be surprised if Envy rocks up now.
Fanboy, yeah.
Okay, Harry, we've got a couple of different clips. This was from the one test that Cameron played, and a little knock on there. Ref didn't pick that up. Good call. But always beating the first offender. Being it with a little contact or feet, he's got the ability to always beat the first offender, and he reads the lean well. So, and what I mean by that is, as an attacker, this guy's he's tackling at the moment. So at some point, he's got to go down if there's no resistance in front of him. And all Cameron needs to do is he just needs to stay away from that. Beats the first offender, immediately off the right foot into the space, gets rid of him, and he just keeps going. Right? Now there, again, we'll talk about the ground skill. This little jackal, or what do you call that? Jackknife recoil at this level, I think it's gonna cost you. Get your shoulder up, move the ball into this space here, but he does get blocked by this defender. We'll go further on this a bit later. And the next one, kick return. Now, Cameron is more a player that's looking for space. He's not going to look to run over people because he wants to offload the ball. Guys who want to offload the ball, try and look for space. He's identified this space early. Again, first defender missing, so it's not that simultaneous double hit. Very clever. And then probably didn't need it at this stage, but ball secured. Running in the trams, tackle fight. That's what you want to see. Runs a great little line, good tackle fight. And this is what I was speaking about earlier, Harry. For him to really get low and cover up the ball, get his head between or hip height, it's going to cost him, and he can't stay on his feet. But these types of players know what type of collision they're going to go into. So what he wants to be a bit more upright so that he can keep fighting on his feet and have that little tackle fight. Again, ball out to him, but he's also got the skill to do that. And this is what makes guys like Cameron Hanekom so dangerous. You commit to him. Augustus coming in knows he's got to sit down on this pod here. They can't leave him because he's such a threat. And then he's got the ability to throw that ball out the back, and they get to attack to the edge. Carry from Creel. Have a look at Hanekom comes into the picture a bit later. So he's supposed to be the next rucker. As he gets there, scans up, sees what's happening, calling the fold, not coming. And the key, yeah, Harry, it seems like he's just taken the ball up and there's nothing happening. Have a look at the amount of defenders he's kept in this zone. Guys on the outside that have needed to come in because they weren't sure if these tackles were going to be made. And as he throws that offload, you got no fold and you got 2 extra defenders part of that tackle. And that's where you get opportunities. That's their corner on the outside there. This is their corner. That's their last player. And that's due to Cameron getting them narrow, getting people to come in and not being sure that the tackle's going to get made.
Yeah, he's what I call an attractive nuisance in that he attracts so much attention on the field that he's a proper nuisance to the other team, and it doesn't even show up in the stats.
This is probably one that John Goosen doesn't want to see. It's one he missed out on a certain try, but Cameron, again, he's got this ability. He will keep the ball alive, or try to, as long as possible. And then two clips that I think MV is going to enjoy thoroughly. Although they lost the game, this nearly put them back into it. But coming off the scrum, he needed to make something out of this because there were defenders. One step, and he finds the try line. Next one, also off a scrum. He's got a bit more work to do on this one. 1, 2, keeps working, and he finishes that. That's a difficult customer to tackle. So that's it on the attack. Anything from you, Harry?
Yeah, he's a big problem, and he's a unique. I think when I look at him versus Roos Visa, I actually think it's a different character because he's so shifty and because he's forever aggressive. He has this, no turn off, and it's coming from chest, shoulders, hips. He's one of those guys when you try to tackle him, you're not sure exactly where you're supposed to tackle him. And that could be a problem, as we'll get into later, about durability, because he's a hard athlete, not a lot of fat on him. It's wiry. And you look at all these different teams, they don't seem to be able to do a one first-time tackle on Cameron Hanekom. It doesn't seem to exist. He's always going to have a helper, and he gets that extra. Other thing I was thinking about is that his perception of angles, his body awareness, I don't know if that's the right word to use, but he seems to have very good spatial awareness. He's spotting holes routinely that they're not that obvious. And you pointed out a few which were brilliant.
I think what you're referring to, it's definitely body awareness. It's feeling where there aren't any resistance and where there are resistance, and going to the side of least resistance, if you want to call that. And these ball carriers, him, Evan Roos, they're brilliant at doing that, but also protecting the ball, moving it in small space, close quarters, moving the ball away from defenders. It's fantastic. Let's move on to the tackling. And again, I think this is one part where I think Visa has just got them a bit, because he gets front on a bit more. That's a very early check. Now, I don't mind players checking early like this, but the next step, you've got to punch forward. Mm-hmm. So you got to check and get onto your toes, and then you got to punch forward. So what happens with Cameron? He gets stepped, and then he gets side on. But this is a position you see him in a lot with tackling. He gets quite side on, and then pulling guys back to their try line. This one, a bit of a work rate one, good leg chop, gets up, sees the opportunity, and he steals the ball for the Bulls there. Now this is, obviously that tackle is difficult to get body in front, but he's got great technique, good wrap, and he stays within that, and in that little work rate sequence that we saw. This is a good picture. This is a very good picture, and what you want to see from him, leaning into that tackle. See how different that looks? Mm-hmm. Only thing I would change is I would get him in front a bit more and not that side on, but at least he's putting shoulders on. You want to see these boys put shoulders on with the power that they have in their legs and the way that they can manhandle people. Even the size of RG. Cameron is a strong boy, that's for sure. Upper body strength, pulling him back. There's nothing wrong with his tackle fight. He'll get involved with in fights like that. And then one thing I picked up on him is he chases everything, and he has the power to have one hand grip and hold on to the player and then complete the tackle over there. Like in this instance, just one hand holds on, Now you can think for yourself there, Harry, how different it looks if that ruck's, if he can make the pass or he gets outside the 22. Look at where that ruck is now. That's pressure. Now there's a lot more pressure. They go even deeper into the 22 or into their own try line. Again, this one pushes through the pod, keeps chasing, and actually catches him, forces that error. Looks like nothing, but a lot of players, when the ball goes out the back like this, goes there, defenders tend to go in front of this pod, which then gives this player a lot of space. But what he does is he pushes through, forces an early pass, keeps chasing, one hand get, makes the tackle and forces that. That's one guy covering 20 meters and forcing two quick passes of one of which is a mistake. And that's a big plus in your defense if you can have one guy just being a nuisance. And you said that earlier, just being a nuisance.
Yeah, and it fits really well into current Bok theory because the applied pressure and never letting up that pressure is sort of the principle it's built on. And Cameron's a particularly good candidate for that because of his speed. I mean, there's not going to be a quicker forward on most pitches than Cameron.
Right. And then the one thing I think he has over the previous two is just his jackal ability. He gets onto the ball so quickly, and his body position is good. Where I think with Visser, sometimes he tends to take a time to get onto the ball. He gets onto body and then onto ball. Cameron gets onto the ball immediately. And if he doesn't get it, he slows it down. Same thing. Leg chop in front of him, gets onto it. He was a bit lucky on this one. He gets onto that, onto his hands, and I think the refs could have gotten him, but he disrupts that just long enough to get the 9-2 to make a mistake. I think they didn't get that anyway. This is a great clip. This is the one that he actually gets. See how quickly he gets into the jackal position, but also he's onto that ball in a flash. Where a lot of jackalers get onto the body and then they start searching for the ball. He gets onto the body immediately. And then because he's gotten himself in such a good position, he doesn't have to put his feet back after the contact. You'll see some of the good jackalers, once they feel contact, they put their feet back to try and survive that clean. He's gotten so much of the ball that he doesn't need to do that, and then he makes that steal. And I'll play this in real time just to show you how quick he gets onto the ball here. All right, Darry, like I said, just something that he can look at. And a lot of the players we've spoken about has got this work on, I think. It's just, and it's kind of, they're a victim of their own ability to break the line and get themselves behind defense lines and get their support runners to be late. So he gets in front of this wall. Now, what I'd like to see here is, this is what I'm talking about. You want him to get a bit lower. He's not going to, you're probably not going to stay on your feet on this one. You want him to get a bit lower and ensure that he doesn't expose this ball. He gets up quite high and then gets ripped on that one. Where I think is that if he'd taken the opportunity just to, even a double hand tuck, get onto their hips, work them, make them catch you instead of dominating you, you've got an opportunity to keep that ball and not get ripped. Same thing on here. Runs into that simultaneous double hit, just a bit high. And they take the ball off him, which I think you're going to have a couple of carries in a game. You want to expose the ball as little as possible. And then just some ground skill work. So he's got an opportunity. There's no one above him. Move that ball towards your try line, towards your 9. He just stays in that position and he gives that cleaner an opportunity to get to the ball. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Little tiny tricks there. If Jasper was almost used to being the toughest guy in the field, and Evan the most powerful. I think Cameron is so used to being the quickest forward that he got a little bit lazy sometimes here and there with the technique. He's clearly the best of the three at pilfering, jackaling, getting over the ball. But there's just a few things, a few what they call the dark arts that he has to learn and
Yeah.
not be too naive. Like he's not going to be, he's quicker than everyone still, even at test level, but he's not going to be that much quicker. So the time for him is shortened. The other thing that is obvious to me is that he does see things in contact. His eyes are open all the time. So this
Yeah.
is someone you can really coach.
He's a fantastic rugby player.
Yeah, Cameron would win if there was an NFL combine and he was testing all the athletic skills and you had all these guys, he would win, because he's got the decathlete kind of body. He can jump, he can push, he can sprint, he's got stamina. And so it's a fantastic athlete. And the question is where to put it. And some people will argue, some coaches will say that he's actually maybe better at a six, because he's got this almost, supernatural ability to get over the ball at a ruck. And then you combine that with these natural eight skills. But I still see him as an eight. And I also think he's going to grow into his body more because I don't think he's going to stay at this, whatever this is, 107, 108. I think he's going to grow and put muscle on. For me, I looked at him as the best at the carry, and then maybe not as great at the tackle as the carry. And the bonus of the pilfer. So it comes out to 39 out of 40 for the collision zone stuff. And then ball skills, the best. 29, he's literally like you're having a back. It's like these hybrids, this Ben Earl, Makalou for France, Wallace Satiti for New Zealand. They're a new breed. Like you don't have to worry about them being a forward involved in the backline movements. On seeing the field, seeing the pitch, seeing the game unfold, best as well. 18. The way he manipulates off the back of the scrum, he was saving the Bulls from having to have red zone attack for a while because he would just be the red zone. You got Cameron in the red zone, he would score. My question, and it's my only question about Cameron Hanekom, is where to play him and how his body is going to hold up with being the top everything for the Bulls, top ruck arriver, defensive and attacking, top carrier, top number of carries, top number of tackles. It's a lot. And he seems to be going down in almost every match with a hamstring issue. I'm not saying he goes off, he fights through, but he has missed some. And I worry about that. So the durability score is what brings it down for me in the test environment, where, as you know, everything goes up about 20% on violence. So I rated him a 7 there, which brings him down below Russ. The good news is that's fixable. There's some S&C there. I think he's highly flexible. Maybe that's his problem. He should be less flexible. But he gets in positions there that are really tough on a body. And so he might opt out of some of those. He might not have to be in every ruck battle and trust his fellow loose forwards.
I'm just wondering, being a forward and being that lean, if it's to your, because he's an absolute athlete. And I've heard some S&C coaches and some high performance sports professionals say that you need a bit of a buffer, with the contact, you need a bit of a buffer, not a body composition of, X% body fat, or just that little bit of a buffer. Maybe, but most of his injuries are actually soft tissue, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, padding. You need some padding. What's fascinating is the Northampton Saints literally 2 years ago decided their players were all too lean. They were too fit. They were too shredded. And they went on this concerted thing to give everyone 2 or 3 extra kgs of padding. And so this brings up our dark horse, actually. But they've had they won the league, and then they didn't have as many off-season issues. And they had a rough start this year because people were on test duty. But now they're in the final of the Champions Cup, and every single man on that team is heavier than they used to be. So this is a very interesting turnaround, because you would think a guy like Cameron's probably really proud of his leanness, and it gives him that extra burst. But what if he could keep it like vessels. There's some guys out there that have added and they're still quick. So, maybe they can go to work there on the Bulls.
Yeah, I don't know. That'll put him into a next level, putting in some more on some more Ks and keeping that strength and speed. That'll be a nightmare to tackle.
Yeah, I mean, Pierre Spies carried a lot more weight. And if that's sort of the prototype he is following, I'm not sure he is. Cameron's a different athlete. He's actually difficult to compare to someone else. He's not, I would say he's one of the more rare athletes that has been developed. And so the question is how to use him the best. And I know for sure that a guy like Tony Brown is loving that problem. Like, give it to me. I'll put him in space. I'll put him in because he, like you said, he doesn't look for the shoulder or the contact as much. He's a guy always looking for that little seam in the defense.